Wall Street is waking up to a sea of red this morning, and if you've been watching your retirement accounts, you already feel the sting. The moment the word unconditional surrender left the president's lips regarding the escalating situation in the Middle East, the markets didn't just flinch, they cratered. We are witnessing a jarring pivot from what many called a quiet recession into a full-blown wartime recession. For those of us who have seen these cycles before, we know that the numbers on the screen represent more than just statistics. They represent our stability. The February jobs report just landed like a lead weight, showing a staggering loss of 92,000 American jobs. While the administration's mouthpieces are busy blaming the winter snow or a few minor strikes, your wallet knows a different truth. Gas prices are climbing, inflation is back with a vengeance, and the soft landing we were promised has turned into a very rocky descent. Is your hard-earned 401k being sacrificed on the altar of a conflict we weren't prepared for? Tonight, we're digging past the spin to see if we can still protect what's ours as the drums of war beat louder across the globe. Let's look at the cold, hard numbers that just landed on the doorsteps of every American household. For months, we were told the economy was on solid ground, but the February jobs report has pulled back the curtain on a very different reality. The United States didn't just miss expectations. We lost 92,000 jobs in a single month. That is not a stutter or a statistical adjustment. That is a siren blaring in the cockpit. Now, if you listen to the talking heads in Washington, they have a long list of excuses ready to go. They want you to believe that a bit of February snow and a few strikes on the West Coast are responsible for this downward spiral. One of the president's own advisors even called it a wash. But we've lived long enough to know when we're being fed a line. You don't lose nearly 100,000 jobs because of a snowstorm. You lose them because the gears of the global economy are seizing up. We're shifting from what experts called a quiet recession into a full-blown wartime recession. This transition is being fueled by a cocktail of policy choices: massive tariffs that have upended our supply chains, the loss of healthcare coverage for thousands, and a consumer debt crisis that has left the average first-time homebuyer waiting until they are 45 years old just to get a foot in the door. But the real weight on the scale is the sudden, explosive tension between Israel and Iran. The moment our foreign policy shifted toward a path of unconditional surrender, the markets realized that the era of cheap energy and predictable trade was over. The Iran-Israel war isn't just happening thousands of miles away. It is happening in our local factories and our small businesses. Companies don't hire when they are staring at the possibility of an energy crisis or a disrupted global shipping lane. As we continue to stand by Israel, we must have the courage to ask what this means for our children's job security and our own financial legacy. When 10% of the population is now responsible for half of all consumer spending, the middle class is left standing on a very thin ledge. The job market is sick, and the medicine being offered by the administration, more conflict and more excuses, is only making the fever rise. For months, we were told that inflation was finally cooling off, that the worst was behind us. But tonight, we're seeing that those numbers were nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion. The truth is, the administration was hiding behind a fig leaf of low energy prices. As long as gas was cheap, they could pretend the rest of the economy was fine. But that leaf has just been blown away by the winds of war. Crude oil has skyrocketed beyond even the most pessimistic projections because, frankly, no one had a full-scale conflict in their 2026 forecast. For the first time in years, we are seeing Brent and West Texas intermediate prices moving in lockstep, climbing higher by the day. This isn't just a noisy bump in the monthly report, it is a fundamental shift in how we will live our lives. If these energy costs stay elevated, and with the Strait of Hormuz effectively choked off by the regime, there is every reason to believe they will, we are looking at a permanent tax on every single American. Higher fuel costs don't just hit you at the pump, they seep into the plastics in your medical supplies, the freight that delivers your groceries, and the very packaging of the food you buy. The statistical agencies in Washington might record these changes in stages, but you and I know better. Gas stations don't wait for a macroeconomic narrative to form before they change the numbers on the sign out front. They do it instantly. And while the Fed debates whether this is just temporary noise, the unsuspecting consumer is about to be pounced upon by a level of inflation we haven't seen in decades. The timing of this Iran-Israel war couldn't be worse. We were promised that tax refunds and no tax on tips would jumpstart our recovery. But what good is a refund check if it barely covers the increase in your utility bill? This conflict between Israel and Iran has effectively guaranteed that any financial breathing room we hoped for has vanished. As the world watches Israel and the mounting costs of this escalation, we here at home are left to defend our bank accounts against an administration that seems to have no plan for the economic fire they've just ignited. While the headlines scream about the front lines, something even more dangerous is happening beneath the surface of our financial system, in what the experts call these plumbing. If you've ever wondered why the Fed suddenly has to step in and pump billions of dollars into the overnight markets, you're not alone. This is the emergency brake they pull when the big banks and lenders are too terrified to trade with each other. It's a sign that the gears are seizing up. In years past, we only saw this kind of intervention at the end of a quarter or the end of the year when things get busy. But recently, the Fed has been forced to step in repeatedly, even during quiet periods. Just last week, they took on $30 billion in securities overnight, and another $9 billion the very moment this latest conflict ignited. This tells us one thing. The American economy was already a ticking time bomb long before the first missile was launched. The war didn't just create the problem, it pulled the pin. What's truly insulting to the average taxpayer is the distraction being offered by Washington. While our retirement accounts are at risk and the cost of living is surging, the administration is busy demanding that Congress pass the Clarity Act to make America the crypto capital of the world. They're arguing over digital currency and speculative bets while the real economy, the one that puts food on your table and pays for your prescriptions, is being hollowed out. It is a cynical play to focus on high-tech gadgets, while the foundation of our house is cracking. They want us to focus on tax refunds that are already projected to be lower than what we saw just a few years ago. They talk about no tax on tips while the hospitality and tourism industries are being decimated by global instability. We are being told to wait for wealthy days ahead, even as we see our purchasing power evaporate at the grocery store. For those of us who have spent a lifetime building our nest eggs, watching the system rely on emergency life support because of the Iran-Israel war is a wake-up call we cannot ignore. The stability of Israel and the surrounding region is vital, but we must ask at what point the cost of the Israel-Iran escalation begins to bankrupt the very people who built this country. Beyond the charts and the market volatility, we have to look at the moral and geopolitical price of this path we've chosen. We are being told this is a necessary fight for security, yet the reality on the ground is far more sobering. As we stand with Israel, we have to wonder, is this the militarized fiscal future we want for our grandchildren? The world is currently treating the US dollar as a safe haven, but don't let that fool you into thinking we are in a position of strength. Global investors are sprinting toward the dollar because they are looking for a deep liquid bunker to hide in while the world burns. It is a flight to safety, yes, but it comes at the cost of record deficits and a fractured equity market that is already rolling over. Even our labour market is showing a disturbing barbell effect. While the big monopolies with massive purchasing power might still be standing, the middle is hollowing out. Job seekers are being forced into lower wage roles at smaller enterprises, while wage growth for both those staying in their jobs and those looking for something new has hit a brick wall. This isn't the robust, winning economy we were promised. It is a sick system being further weakened by the Iran-Israel war. Every month there are fewer of us working, and our actual purchasing power continues to decline. As the escalation between Israel and Iran continues to dominate the headlines, we must decide if we are willing to let the American middle class be the collateral damage that pays for this wartime recession. We are watching the wealth of our generation flow from an aging population into private sectors that offer sick care rather than growth. It is a cycle of dependency that is only being accelerated by the chaos abroad. We've moved past the excuses. The snow has melted and the strikes have settled, but the red ink on our balance sheets is only getting darker. What we are witnessing is the birth of a full-blown wartime recession, one that was triggered the moment diplomacy failed and the Israel-Iran escalation became the new reality. For decades, we've been told that these foreign entanglements are for our own protection. But as we watch 92,000 jobs vanish in a single month, while the price of oil threatens to bankrupt our daily commute, we have to wonder, who is this war actually for? Unless you are a major shareholder in a military contractor, the Iran-Israel war is not a victory. It is a massive withdrawal from the Bank of American Prosperity. The stability of Israel remains a cornerstone of our foreign policy, but a strategy that destroys the domestic economy and leaves the average retiree struggling to pay for groceries is a strategy in desperate need of a reality check. We cannot afford to project strength abroad if we are hollowing out our own middle class at home. The choices made today in the Oval Office and on the battlefields of the Middle East will determine if we enter the coming year with a nest egg or just a pile of debt. It is time to stop listening to the noise and start demanding the truth about our financial future. Comment "Stand for stability." If you want our leaders to focus on the home front as much as the front lines, make sure to share this video with one friend who is still relying on the mainstream news for their economic outlook. The truth is too important to keep to yourself.